Hi, you've reached Burger King. To leave a message, press 1.
Hey, Burger King, it's Mike calling again. I called a billion times about the burgers and the chicken and the flame grilling. My big idea. Call me back. I'm here at home.
Michael, didn't we talk about you trying the new flame grilled chicken burger from Burger King? A savory flame grilled chicken patty topped with veggies on a toasted bun. Now just 2 for $5. Or mix and match with another delicious sandwich, part of the 2 for $5 deal. The new flame grilled chicken burger, only at Burger King. Limited time only. Price and participation vary.
Blog Talk Radio. Audio Jungle.
Contending for Truth Radio. This is Scott Osborne waiting for Rodney Lee Conover. There he is. He is on the road this morning calling in. We are going to have a great show for you this morning. Looking forward to a great time. Rodney, is that you there?
That's me. I can't log into the studio, but I can call in. How about that? How are you?
I'm doing great. Been a long week, but doing great.
Well, listen, we should talk about a couple of things, and they are debate number 1 and debate number 2. Just briefly, because I want to get right to the doctor today, because I want to get his opinion on that as well. But there was a couple of debates since the last time you and I talked. There was a Republican debate on Thursday, and then there was. Most people don't know this, but there was a Democrat debate last night. Now, when I say most people don't know this, I'm talking about, I didn't even know it. I literally stumbled across the Democratic debate last night. When there is a Republican debate, as there was Thursday, there is unbelievable media coverage leading up into that debate and an unbelievable social media interaction leading up to that debate. Now, if you want to attribute that all to Donald Trump, fine, but I don't. I do not. I attribute a lot of it to Donald Trump. He gets the ratings. He gets people to watch. But did you hear a single word? Did you read a single article, tweet, Facebook posting about the fact that there was a Democrat debate last night?
Not one.
I'm sitting there. I am literally flipping through the channels because I didn't watch any football because I don't really care. Once the Chicago Bears are eliminated, really don't care what happens. But I did want to watch the highlights to see who won, and so I would at least know who was going to play next week for the championship rounds. And I stumbled across a Democrat debate. I thought, well, maybe that's a replay of the last one. I turned around. No. It's a regularly scheduled Democrat debate with the three old white people, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, and that other dude. Nobody knows who he is, and I'm shocked. I'm like, I didn't hear any. Look, not everybody hangs out on social media and reads 8 newspapers on their iPad, and writes columns and does radio. And not everybody sits there like a dope all day trying to figure out what's going on in the world of entertainment and politics, but I do. And I didn't see a word about the fact that there's a debate on a Sunday night. Now, it's football day, big-time football playoff day, Sunday night. Not only that, it's a holiday today. So people are treating last night like it was a Saturday night because they don't go to work ostensibly today. At least government workers don't. We do, but government workers don't. So the media and the Democrat Party have conspired to absolutely hide debate. I don't think there's any doubt. Is there any doubt in anybody's mind? And I don't blame them, because I wouldn't call them a debate. I mean, last night it got a little bit fiery because Bernie Sanders dared to say that Hillary Clinton took speaking fees from Goldman Sachs, which I don't care. You can get a big speaking fee from Goldman Sachs. It's a bribe. I mean, let's face it. Nobody shows up to a Hillary speech. The other day I posted a video of a Hillary rally because the backdrop fell down and I think it hit a couple people on the head. I thought that was indicative of her campaign. And there was maybe a couple hundred people. Maybe. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, for Goldman Sachs to pay Hillary $800,000 or whatever, I don't know the exact figure, for a speech is a campaign contribution. That is not a market-based speaking fee. I mean, Hillary Clinton does not get paid. If this was just the market, if Hillary Clinton was not running for anything, if there was no payoff, if you will, for Goldman Sachs, they would not be paying Hillary Clinton more than say Ann Coulter or Hillary or Herman Cain or somebody that actually people would show up to watch. There's no way in heck. And here's another thing I want to talk about. In the Republican debate, Ted Cruz, although he maybe could have done this a little bit more articulately, mentioned that there's a difference between the nation's conservatives and New York values. Now, everybody knows what he's talking about. Everybody knows what Ted Cruz is talking about. New York City values. Bloomberg, de Blasio, Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo came out the other day and he said that pro-life people aren't welcome in the state. Can you believe that? Right-wing conservatives are not welcome in New York. Well, that's New York values, okay? Everybody knows what New York values are. Abortion on demand, socialism, and gun confiscation. That's what New York values are, okay? Nobody's trying to hide that. No New Yorkers are trying to hide that. Now, you want to talk about the working man in New York? Do you think the firefighters, first responders, uniformed policemen, and military people in New York, do you think they support de Blasio and Cuomo? They hate them. They hate them. De Blasio showed up to the funeral of a cop, and the New York policemen turned their back on him. Told him not to show up. De Blasio sides with the criminals when it comes to policemen in New York. That's New York values. They're going to be endorsing Cruz. And they're going to be probably endorsing Trump, but that's not the point. The point is, we all know what Cruz was talking about. Oh, Donald Trump, boy, he threw it. I tell you, some of the shine came off Donald Trump in that last debate, and I'll tell you when. When he started talking about, we pulled together after 9/11, so we're conservatives. No, you're not. No, you're not. You got one issue, and that's immigration. That's it. Now, it just happens to be the most important. It just happens to be the most important issue. So, yeah, we dig what you're doing, Donald Trump. We love what you're doing, Donald Trump. We always have. But don't start going after my guy, Cruz, because all of a sudden, his eligibility to become president is an issue. A year ago, you went on TV and said there's no case.
That's right.
You talked to all your lawyers and all the constitutional scholars, and they all said the same thing, that Ted Cruz is eligible to be president. I don't want to get a big argument about that, but I will tell you this, that Donald Trump goes where the wind blows. All right? And I think it's time, on that note,
Rodney, before we throw the doctor in here, you didn't quote scripture, but you quoted one of my favorite quotes. And we have to throw this. We have to throw this in here if we're going to talk about New York City, and then let's bring the doctor in. John Adams was heading through the countryside, and he wrote a diary. And long before the election, the revolution, on October 23rd of 1974, he said this, and I love this quote. With all the opulence and splendor of this city, of course he's speaking of New York City, there is very little good breeding to be found. We have been treated with an assiduous respect, but I have not seen one real gentleman, one well-bred man, since I came to town. At their entertainment, there is no conversation that is agreeable. There is no modesty, no attention to one another. They talk very loud, very fast, and all together. If they ask you a question before you can utter 3 words of your answer, they will break out against you and talk away. And that's our President John Adams said about New York City. So I'll throw it back to you to bring in the doctor.
Hey, Doc, are you there?
Yeah, listening to that, it's interesting. Both of my parents are from
Dr. Mark Bronstein from Sherman Oaks, California. Family practice for 25-plus years over there. He is the man.
Hey,
and
thanks.
he is on Conover U right now. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, I got to go to the Soho House.
Oh, you did?
On Sunset Strip, yeah. I can't tell you with whom, but, yeah, I've never seen so many actors, actresses. Yeah, Penthouse up on Sunset Strip on Thursday night. It was a Thursday night. Or Wednesday night. Yeah. Saw Jack Black up there. Saw, who was it that played in 300? Russell Crowe. No one was even looking.
Spotting.
Absolutely, yeah. It was interesting. It's like going to the Academy Awards or something. You just go up there, up an elevator. You been up there, that place? It's
oh, yeah.
Never seen it, never heard of it. Yeah, that's beautiful, breathtaking, the most beautiful restaurant or any kind of a rooftop thing I've ever seen in my life.
I saw John Belushi there once. How about that? How's that for star spotting?
I never knew it even existed, and it's this opulent place where I'm it's for artist type people. It's probably left wing, but I don't know. I don't know if there's any prevailing sentiment there.
My guess is that Russell Crowe is not left wing. I'm just going to go out on a
limb. That's the thing. I don't picture that either. Yeah.
I don't think Russell Crowe puts up his shit on from anybody.
Yeah, that sort of dashed my theory. But I still wonder. It says it's for artistic, free thinking, sort of liberal thinking people in a way. But they didn't use the word liberal on the brochure there. This opulent private club. But anyway, that was my exciting thing for the week. And then, so I was just thinking about what you said. My parents were both born and raised in New York, but it was a long time ago. They're in their mid-90s, and their parents immigrated legally through Ellis Island from Russia, Romania. They were my adoptive parents, but still, nonetheless, my parents. And I grew up in Princeton. I lived in Princeton, New Jersey until I was 6. We used to go to New York a lot, and I had uncles there and aunts that lived there, and the thing is, I think there's just such a combination of people there. It's hard to pin it down, but I think that I know that my father's values were, he volunteered for World War II at age 18, and he never stole a penny, and he worked harder than his father died when he was about 9, so he had to work hard and support his family. He had jobs working in construction sites and whatever he could get, and going to school. So that was his values. And then he went to religious school, even though they were poverty-stricken. Somehow he did that and learned morals and ethics and values. He would never steal anything. He always brought us up as more than honest. I mean, I couldn't even tell you to the penny. I mean, to every. And then he killed Nazis during World War II, even though he was anti-gun. He did it anyway, and because he knew it was the right thing to do. And when he came back, he on the GI Bill, he was able to afford to go to college, but was turned down from several colleges in New York City because he was Jewish, and including Columbia University, which I mentioned before. He had to go to NYU because he got into Columbia, but then they found out he was Jewish, and they said, we're sorry, we met our Jewish quota, so we can't have you here. And then he went on to work with various Nobel Prize winners, and he was very smart. He invented the LED and infrared. He has a patent for that in 1952. The first LED in the world, he invented it. And but it was an infrared, so it's all the remote controls, like your remote control TV. That's the infrared LED. He invented that. So a smart guy, and he contributed to society. He never stole a cent, and he would lecture anywhere for free, not for $500,000 or $50,000. Like Hillary Clinton or various politicians, Al Gore and such, and he did it for free. So those are New York values also. And So it's hard to say what that means, really, in my mind, having grown up with New York values in my home. On the other hand, they're left-wing liberal Democrats, too, so I disagree with that 100%. So it's a confusing thing for me when I hear that term.
Well, I don't know if you saw the Republican debate, but my guy Ted Cruz, Donald Trump came out after Cruz, and he said he was gonna, and he went after him for this whole birther issue, which is not an issue at all. It's complete bullshit. They've gone over it a million times, and Trump brought up the name of this far left Harvard constitutional professor, a guy who was Al Gore's lawyer in 2000 when they did the whole recount, a guy who has contributed the max to the Clintons, including Hillary Clinton this time around, time and time again. This guy is a far left-wing Harvard professor, and that's who Donald Trump used to illustrate that Ted Cruz was not eligible to run for president. It was such a joke. And finally, Cruz broke ranks, and he said, "Well, Donald, let me tell you who this guy is," and went on to explain to the audience what a excuse the pun, what a trumped-up piece of crap that was. And they went back and forth, and it didn't get nasty, but it was kind of I thought Donald Trump looked really stupid. I thought he was it was pointless in this debate to run around doing what they were doing. And then I saw an article that there was a video with him and Tim Russert where he just flat out says, "Look, I'm from New York. I have New York values, and they're not the same values as they have in Iowa." In other words, it's a real put down to the Midwest. And here they are going for the Iowa caucus, and this video comes out. I think Trump looks really stupid right now, and he really, I guess what I'm saying is he went too far with his big fat mouth, and I just the guy's a douchebag, and I love what he's doing, but he's a douchebag. Those are New York values, the values of douchebags. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so I still like, despite all of that, I don't know, I can't explain why I like Cruz, but I just don't think he can win. That's my opinion, because he isn't dynamic enough. He doesn't have the personality. That's my opinion. I hope I'm wrong, because I would rather have him as well. That's why I'm for Trump. I think he has the personality to win. He has enough. He has a big enough personality, and I'm just thinking, who has a big enough personality to beat Hillary Clinton is already almost a shoo-in. For some reason, she just is. And the Democrats are not going to vote for Cruz. I mean, they don't even know who he is. It's not happening. At least the ones inside of all this. I know a lot of Democrats over my whole life. They're not voting for. They don't even. They just look at Ted Cruz. You kidding me? That's the reaction you're going to get.
You make a good point, and there is this. In fact, that is the point. That is the only point when it comes down to it. And this election, as we have been talking about, is different than the other elections. And I'm with you, Doc. I announced to the world, to anybody who cares, to anybody who follows me, that this election, I'm not going to stick to my guns. I am not going to be the hardcore a-hole that I usually am, and I'm going to. My goal is to win, and not to stick 100% to my. I wouldn't say principles, but I'm not going to compromise on principle, but I am going to compromise on strategy. And I agree. There are Democrats that are going to vote for Donald Trump in droves. In droves.
Yes, but not Ted Cruz, because
but
he
not
hasn't
Ted
made
Cruz.
On them. No, that I know. We talked.
Now
about
here's the flip side.
Yeah.
Here's the flip side. You're right. The Democrats will not vote for Cruz. But here's the flip side. The reason Romney lost in 2012 is not because Barack Obama got more votes than he did the time. But Barack Obama, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't even get as many votes as he did in 2008. The problem was that conservatives didn't come out and vote for Romney. And that is where Ted Cruz has the advantage. Can Ted Cruz get enough conservatives to come out and stomp on Hillary to beat him, or are we better off with Trump because, conservatives don't have anywhere else to go but Trump. They maybe hold their nose like I'm going to. And can you get enough Democrats to come over from Hillary? Many think like you do, Mark, and I'm telling you, you're probably right. But I'm still sticking with Cruz because I don't believe in this whole, he's not dynamic enough. And I agree with what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
I can't think of any other explanation. Yeah, that's the only explanation I can come up with.
No, but it's legitimate in today's world. It's a popularity contest. Trump is getting his popularity not because of his past, not because of his ability, his experience in governing. He has none. He's getting his experience. He's getting his support by what he says and how he says it. Clearly, I mean, there's no doubt about it because he has flip-flopped. He's changed his view on any number of key Republican issues. And, I love Trump. I love what he's doing. Thank God somebody's breaking through this wall of political correctness that is just killing us. And maybe the issue of political correctness is even bigger than the issue of immigration, the budget, the Constitution, everything. Maybe political correctness is the most important issue of our time.
I don't know. I think that I'm just thinking as I thought as a Democrat for most of the years of my life, and the people that seem to impress the Democrats most for president or for vice president for a big office, they had big personality and they were Democrat. Except for Reagan, he won over a lot of Democrats. They had this warmth. They're looking for warmth and not so much talking. They don't want to hear a guy that talks 50 miles an hour and that blasts your brain. They don't want to hear it. It gives you a headache. They want to see facial expression. They want to see the camera zoom in. They want to see a smile. They want to see pauses. They want to see reflection with silence. Because that's the way the great speakers speak. They don't just keep talking. And I'm certainly no great speaker. But I'm just saying that if you look at the pattern of their speech, even Jimmy Carter, he did the weirdest thing. I used to watch him as a kid or as a teenager. He used to smile in the middle of talking. You remember that Carter smile? And you wonder, why is he smiling? Because he's talking about something very serious that's not funny and not pleasant. But he break out in a big, warm smile in the middle of some sentence all the time. And he'd pause. He'd make certain pauses.
Something that Trump really put me off in the last debate, but something that he did that I really loved and I was cheering him was someone called him angry. So he said, it was Nikki Haley, the governor from South Carolina, said, we don't need a president that's angry. And everybody knows who she's talking about. She's talking about Trump. And Trump and Nikki Haley are apparently friends. And they, it was one of the first questions they put on Trump. They said, well, Nikki Haley, who was in the audience, said you were angry. You're an angry, guy. And Trump said, gladly accept that. I am angry. And he went with it. And I was like, oh, that's such a perfect answer. Because the country is angry. My God, what do you think he's doing up there? He's reflecting the anger of the entire country. He said, you're damn right I'm angry. I'm the angry candidate. Vote for me. I loved it.
That's right. I vote for Trump. I love it. He reflects the emotion of the people. He emotes exactly what people are thinking and feeling, and that's why they like him. And they don't give a crap about his hair. They don't care. I like the hair. It gives him more person. I like the messy hair. It gives him more personality. I like the way he fumbles. I like the way he isn't politically correct. I like all of it because he's more human. And I don't like his personality, the conceited part of him, the narcissist. But I like the part that he's not going to give up. You have to run over with a steamroller before he'll stop pursuing what we want out of our president. Whereas I don't get that feeling at all from any other candidate, really. I don't sense it. The anger, the rightful anger where it belongs there. Of course he's angry. We're all angry.
Scotty, jump in here, will you? I want to get your reaction to what we've been talking about.
You know, you guys are playing with option A and option B, and I think there's an option C, and I'm a firm believer that Donald Trump really worked hard on it this week in the debate, and that's Ted Cruz wins and takes Donald Trump as his vice president. Number one, I think it's a winning ticket. I think it's a huge winning ticket on a number of reasons. I think Donald Trump continues to get more conservative that way. I'm a firm believer he's been listening for the last year to Ted Cruz on some of these issues that we're not worried about him being extra strong on. And again, I still say this is all set up. I'm going to tell you, what Donald Trump's, he's got some ego, we know. It's overinflated when he gets in front of the camera. I believe that's part of his shtick. I don't believe he has that same kind of a mentality when he's in a business meeting with a board of directors. But he's consistently done the opposite of what any campaign manager would tell a candidate to do. We keep thinking, and you hear the keep saying it. For months now, they've been saying it, oh, that's it, man. Donald Trump just killed himself. It's almost like he's trying to make sure that he wins second place in this so that Ted Cruz can win first place. Because it is. And let me tell you, on this birther issue, there is a tiny fraction of individuals that really actually have a problem with this. I got 4,200 Facebook friends, and they're pretty diverse. And I've only got a couple of friends out of that whole group that really are serious about Ted Cruz's birther issue. And this was an issue that needed to come out now and not in the middle of the general. That's what the primary election is for. And I will stick by my guns till the last day that they did this on purpose, that they're getting a little bit, testy on purpose. The American people, that helps bring them in. It helps make them pay attention. That's what Donald Trump's been doing this entire election cycle, has been saying statements and saying things that make people pay attention. And when they pay attention to Donald Trump, right now they're paying attention to Ted Cruz. And I cannot believe anything except for that is a net positive for Ted Cruz going into this. And Donald Trump and Ted Cruz both know that.
I think you're right. I just got this visual of all three candidates, of Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump, all as fishermen. Have you ever been fishing? You notice you're sitting there, and anyone who's been fishing, you look around and it seems like somebody else is always catching the fish, and there's always this one guy, and you can't put a finger on him. He doesn't have the best equipment. He doesn't have the best physique. He's just been doing it a long time, and he just kind of knows how to fish. He knows what he thinks like a fish. Where would the fish be? And you just know it. And same with poker. I mean, some guys always they belong there. But you look at the guy that comes out like me with all the fancy equipment, better fishing rod than the guy that's catching the fish, a better boat, rented a better boat, rented better equipment, whatever it is, and I'm not catching anything. Paid for more expensive bait. And I'm all fully equipped, licensed, and he doesn't have a license. I'm ready to go, and I'm not catching anything. And Hillary's catching some fish on the other end. They know how to bring in the votes. They just know. I think Trump and Hillary, in their own way, know how to bring in the votes. They have different methods.
And then there's the guy. You're missing the guy.
I'm like Ted Cruz.
Yeah, you're missing the guy in the back of the boat who's drinking Miller Lite beer, watching the rest of you guys fish, and going, isn't this a big a waste of time, guys? That's me. That's me in the boat. But you're right. That's a good analogy. That.
And so if you're a fisherman, what you do is you kind of make friends with the guy that's catching the fish. He comes in to clean all his fish. You got nothing, right? You go, nice fish. I do that all the time. I go, how did you what kind of bait? You see how much information I'll give you. How much bait are you using? You try to find out what their trick is, how they're thinking, because otherwise you don't catch anything. And luckily, they usually tell you, and then you have a half a chance. So forever that.
I don't know. I don't know if you saw the. Hey, Scotty, jump in here again. I got to take a call. You there, Scotty?
I'm here. Well, and Doctor, there's the other side to this that Rodney started talking about that I want to hit as well, and that's the Democratic side. It's these debates that they've been holding have really backfired on them, and they've really tried to protect their own. They're better than the Republicans are at protecting their own. We should have really, the RNC should really, their job should have been a long time ago to make sure that we had 3 or 4 good candidates so that we could have easy debates, not all this 1 million candidates on the Republican stage. But they've been trying to protect Hillary, and in doing so, they've hid the debates, they did this, and they're finding out that it's really backfired in 2 ways. Number one, the Democrats are not getting their message out like the Republicans are. The Republicans are getting their message out to 10 times as many people during this. But, Hillary Clinton is sitting with Bernie Sanders, of all people, on her heels in the early primary state. And I still don't think he's got quite what it takes to win. But, man, he's given her some hard damage. And as we go forward into the next few weeks, she's going to have to really start attacking Bernie Sanders. And I still say he's their Ron Paul. Man, I think you're right, Rodney. I think that Bernie Sanders was brought in to make Hillary look younger and more conservative than she is. And I think it's backfired on him, Doctor. I think that he's really kind of turned into their own Ron Paul. And you're going to have a fraction of those, a portion of those voters, that when he doesn't win the primary, they're going to be really upset, just like the Ron Paul people were. This is the only thing to save our country. How could the Democrats vote for that Hillary Clinton woman? And you got to remember, the far left has never liked Hillary Clinton. Never. For 2 decades, they have not liked Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, when she was in the Senate, was a foreign policy hawk. Now, no matter what, she served under the behest of the president over the last few years. But for her record is pretty hawkish on foreign policy. And boy, they've got a problem there between some of those Bernie Sanders voters and the Hillary Clinton voters. They're trying to hide it from the American people from the debates. And I think it's backfiring on them big time. I think it gives them major problems going into the general.
Yeah, I think that for the female voters, the female Democratic voters, and I would guess this applies to, I guess to most of them, I can't imagine they would ever not vote for a female Democratic candidate. I just can't picture it. No matter what they did, no matter what their agenda, no matter what they came out of prison, it doesn't matter. Remember that one mayor of Washington, D.C., got reelected while he was in prison for cocaine use? Barry, I think it was Mayor Barry. Was it Barry? Something like that.
That was Washington. That was Washington D.C. It was Marion Barry. Yeah.
Marion
no,
Barry.
You're right.
So it happens. I mean, they really don't care. The people vote for some. There are other reasons people get voted in, and some of it's intangible, some of it's just a feeling. They're not going to. Women Democrat voters are not going to not vote for a female Democrat. I'm sorry. It's just I can't picture it. Maybe a few percent.
I'll go one step beyond that, Mark, and I've been talking about this for as long as I've been in politics, and that is people are not taking into account, and they will never be able to take into account, the number of women who have, never voted in their life, who are all of a sudden going to vote for Hillary Clinton. There are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of women who have never voted in their entire life, or they're very young and they never planned on voting, who are going to vote. There's a woman running. And there's a whole other block of women that I've never heard anybody talk about, and that is the huge amount, and I'm talking huge amount, of women who have never voted for a Democrat. They've been voting Republican their whole life, and they're going to vote for Hillary because she's a woman. And you know what? Is that sexist? You bet. But it's not sexist on my part. It's sexist on the part of the women who are voting because that person is a woman. And there is, I call it the vagina vote, and it is huge. It is, as Donald Trump would say, huge. And no one is talking about it.
You got to appeal to that. See, that's like I talk about the fisherman guy. How's he catching the fish? Is it really because they have a vagina and they have different genitalia? No, it's because they appeal to women for other reasons that the candidates that are male don't. And I think that's emotional.
And you can't take a poll. You can't poll that. You can't call 1,000 Republican women and say, okay, how many are you going to vote for? Because they won't tell you. They're going to go into that booth, they're going to hold their nose, and they're going to vote for Hillary. And when they come out of that booth, they're going to say they voted Republican, but they didn't.
Right.
They want to see the first female president, and that's the end of that.
It could be, but then you have to ask maybe a psychologist or a group of they can maybe figure out why is that? What are the core, what are the unconscious drives? This is what I deal with all day. Is trying to figure this out. What are the unconscious motives? What are the, if you can tap into that, it may not be female. It may be nurturing. Maybe nurturing. It may be something we're not even thinking of. I think it's pretty simple. I think they just want to see a woman run the country. It's their turn. I think it's very similar to 2008. It's time to have a black man. And you know what? 8 years from now, it's going to be time for the first Hispanic president, unless my guy wins, which I think he's going to, Ted Cruz. His dad is from Cuba. Marco Rubio's dad is from Cuba, and you can see Chris Christie from Cuba. That's my new Ricky Ricardo party line. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Anyway, I know we got Jack in the queue.
I know you got to get going, so I'm going to say I'll say a collective goodbye to the great doctor. Fun talking to you as always, buddy. We will talk to you Monday, if not before. Okay, my friend.
Okay. All right. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Okay. Listen, we've got a special guest today. I'm very excited. We've been trying to get this guy on for 2 weeks. Now, last week, and I'm going to give him crap about this, last week he had some sort of meeting. And so he went to some sort of meeting and said, buddy, listen, he's running for office, and you got to go to meetings because you might pick up some cash there. But thank God he's here today. Hey, listen, Preacher Scotty, bring on your brother.
Hey, you got it. Hey, this is the guy I've been looking at this last couple of weeks, Rodney. He's a friend of yours, and I really like what Jack has to say. Running for Congress in the great state of Florida. Now, it's not Texas, but it is Florida, which is a wonderful place as well. But you know what? I want to introduce him by reading this, Rodney, from his website, because I love this. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their power from the consent of the governed. We talk on Contending for Truth Radio, Jack, a lot about Red Skelton's Pledge of Allegiance, where he says, from the people to the leaders, not the leaders to the people. And in the biblical illustration of a slave and a master, that makes our public servants the slaves and we, the people, the master. But we've got a bunch of people on both sides, not just Democrats. We've got Republicans, and that's why it's important that Jack is running. On both sides, who believe when they get elected into office, they're the master, and they're there to rule and govern the people. They're there to tell the people what to do. And that is the opposite of this great experiment we call America. We did it the other way so that we don't end up in tyranny. Our founding fathers were brilliant. Give the power to the people, then the government can't turn into a tyranny. And we've gotten away from that. And that's why we need a lot of Jack Martins, folks. We need a lot. Not only do we need Jack Martin in Congress there in Florida, but we need some Jack Martins in every single state that understand this mentality that they're going there to be a public servant. So, Jack, I want to bring you in. Welcome to Conover U. Good to have you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful, my brother, and I'm glad to be here. And I'm glad you used that line, because that's the line that really stuck out to me, is that in our country, we've gotten to be politicians. We come here, we get the people's votes, and then we go back to Washington and do whatever we feel like. And that has got to stop. You hit it on the nose. Our founding fathers were brilliant beyond their years. They understood a tyrannical government. They understood having no voice. And they set our Constitution up and based it on the Declaration of Independence as its foundation, as a way to make sure that the people's voice was always the voice that was heard. And that doesn't happen anymore.
It really doesn't. And I'll tell you, we live in a country right now where we are going down the wrong direction, and it's not necessarily the fault of the far left. I put a lot of blame on Republicans for this reason that we're discussing. I put a lot of blame on the churches. I put a lot of blame on our pulpits. We're dealing with issues like homosexuality right now because for years in our pulpits, our preachers quit talking about adultery and fornication. And now we got a whole millennial group of conservatives who don't understand the issue of gay marriage. So I put the blame on many, many places, but it is a fight we got to fight. Rodney, I'm going to pass it over to you to talk to your friend Jack.
How you doing, Jack? Great to have you on the show today. Great to talk to you again. I'm trying. It seems like yesterday we were talking in Florida, but that was quite a while ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it sure was. I'm hoping your dad and your family are doing well. I remember back then you had a lot of problems that way with health issues, but we stand here, Rodney, in the same place we did back then, trying to wake America up, trying to let the people know that if we don't turn this thing around, we're on the precipice. We're right on the edge, and you're looking at a government, and Scott had it down packed. The pulpits have been quiet. I'm probably one of a very few that speak out the way I do, but the pulpits have been silent. Issues from a divorce onto immorality to homosexuality, and you could go on. And until the pulpits begin to fire up again and speak, we're going to continue down the road wrong. When the pastor's quiet in the pulpit, the people walk out of church thinking, well, pastor didn't say anything about it, so much must be okay, but it's not. It's not.
Well, it's interesting because you see political correctness now expanding to the point where they're actually telling preachers and ministers and pastors and people of the cloth, people in church, what they can and can't say. And there is well, you talk about dangerous. Now you are talking about it. You're not feeling around the edges of tyranny. You're talking about not a soft tyranny, as Mark Levin always says. You're talking about a direct tyranny. When you conspire, when a government conspires to control a church, that is the literal definition of fascism. And you are heading down a bad path when you start doing that.
Well, and we're there already. A few years back in Canada, they began to come up with the hate speech, but we see it here. We see it with businesses. The baker that wouldn't bake the cake because it violated their conscience, Hobby Lobby, any of these florists. But it's coming to the pulpit. I've told our people, I said, if they come and drag me out of the building, somebody get up here and finish my message. Because we cannot be silent. Dietrich Bonhoeffer may have said the best example for every one of us.
Well, I'm not as learned as you and Scotty in biblically speaking. I'm one of these Christians who's trying as hard as he can, and I think that's
okay.
That's the most. I don't know. That's the most I can do is just trying hard as I can. But one of my favorite books is Daniel, and the reason is because I'm pretty sure I descended from Daniel. As you know, they didn't. It was just. It's not Daniel per se, because back in the ancient languages, they didn't have vowels like we have vowels. So it was, instead of DAN, it was just DN, and that's why you see so many cities in the UK, London, Dunkirk, it all kind of descends from the lost tribes, and I really do believe I have just a really strong feeling I descended from Daniel, and also I have a strong connection to the Chaldean Christians. And I don't know where I was going with this. Where was I going? It was something that you just said. It was. And, they threw Daniel in the lion pit. And you said if they drag you out of your church, somebody stand up there and finish your message. Yep. They threw Daniel in the lion pit, and he said, you know what? That's fine. I'd rather be eaten by lions than go against my values. And that's kind of what I think. That's kind of what you're saying. And until collectively we put a backstop up and we say the ball doesn't go any further than here, then we're going to keep going down this trail. What do you think about my biblical prowess? Because I'm always trying to impress Scotty.
Well, you did well, and let me kind of add to that a little bit in the same book, the three Hebrew children, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, because they're told that they're going to bow down to this golden idol, and their answer is, listen, we're not going to bow down, and even if you throw us into the fire, we're not going to bow down, and our God can spare us. But even if he doesn't spare us, we will not bow down, and that has got to be the Christian view right now. We cannot back down. There's no more room to step back. We have lost prayer. We've lost so many different Christian practices that we've had. You can't even carry a Bible to school or wear a Jesus T-shirt. You can wear an immoral T-shirt, but you can't wear something that names the name of Jesus.
You can wear a Che Guevara T-shirt. You can wear a T-shirt that has Karl Marx on it.
Exactly.
It's amazing. It's amazing. You can actually wear a T-shirt that says Hillary for president. Yet you can't have a T-shirt that references the Bible. It's this phony outrage. It's this made up, Alinsky-driven outrage, and people are not offended. Look, I worked in New York for a long time, and we're having this big brouhaha about New York values. Everybody knows what Ted Cruz was talking about. I used to work in New York, and I walk into the CNN building around the holidays, and there are other menorahs everywhere. Now, am I offended by a menorah? No. I grew up in an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. Of course I'm not offended. Even if I wasn't, am I going to be offended by a menorah? No, it's beautiful. And these excuse my language, I almost said something bad. These people that run around saying they're offended by Merry Christmas, well, guess what? I think you're a bunch of liars. I really do think it's a big lie. You're not offended by Christmas. Christmas has been going on forever, and this is a country that's celebrated.
It's just another way to silence Christianity. We're not offended by Rosh Hashanah. We're not offended by any Muslim festivities. But as soon as you mention Christmas, everybody gets offended. And let's be real. Anybody that's offended by the words Merry and Christmas, they've got problems.
They do. They have one of two things. They've got a psychological problem, or they have a political agenda. And I would say to you that 98% of it is the political agenda. Here's another thing. People that I'm describing, and they are a minority, people who are offended, so to speak, by Christianity, people trying to get In God We Trust off the money, and all this rigmarole. Let me give you fair warning. Christians, the reason Christians can be battered around so much, and the reason Christians can be talked about like they are talked about in the media and derided and discriminated in that sense against, the reason is because we're a bunch of nice people. Exactly. We're not going to take you aside and chop your head off, okay? We're just not good. We're going to turn the other. We're going to turn the other cheek. Now the other cheek's been turned. I only have 4 cheeks total, Pastor Jack, and they've all been turned. And let me put a warning to everybody: long fuse, big boom. Okay, that there's going to be a big boom if it goes on too long. I mean, am I out of order?
No, you're spot on, and to be honest with you, that is the exact reason that I chose to run. I felt like the Lord said, Jack, you stand in the pulpit, you preach this every week, your people know, but you've got to get outside the walls. There are people that need to hear. Our nation is going to go the way of all nations if we don't turn things around right now. And it's been the silence of the church. It's been the pastor who is afraid of either the 501c3 loss, or they're afraid of losing the big tithers in their church. Somewhere you've got to throw that to the wind and say, I have a higher obligation to God and country. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm looking at our $18 trillion debt and thinking about my children and my grandchildren and thinking, what are we leaving them? I'm looking at the moral condition of our nation today and saying, my children have been raised, they've been homeschooled. Every one of them is either in college or through college, and I've got 6 kids, so that my wife homeschooled them. That wasn't an easy task, but they know what's right. But how many kids out there today don't know what is morally right and wrong? Yesterday was Sanctity of Life Sunday. How many people really understand that a child is formed in the womb by God, but instead they'll follow the ways of the world? And you saw Planned Parenthood this year. Those videos that were out, they're criminal in their content. It was silenced immediately, and now the people who took the videos are getting ready to be charged against by Planned Parenthood.
Well, Planned Parenthood is going to have their day, and they're starting to be judged. But I don't understand why people cannot. I mean, the information is, and we can't use this excuse anymore. Well, the media is left wing, and so that's the problem. No, we can't use that excuse anymore because we have more than the media. Listen, Ronald Reagan didn't have the internet or Rush Limbaugh talk radio. He didn't have Sean Hannity. Ronald Reagan didn't have all of that stuff, but he had the same left-wing media against him. But you know what Ronald Reagan had? Ronald Reagan had young Republicans. Yes, I was a young Republican once. And he had the conservative, majority in America.
Yeah.
And we still have a conservative majority in America. And now we have all these other ways to get the information out. Sometimes, yes, it's a little convoluted. But to sit back and say, well, we can't win because of the left-wing crap, well, that's not true anymore. I mean, enough about this. Let's get to your campaign. Let's hear, Pastor Jack, first of all, tell our audience what district. And then when I say what district, define it in terms of kind of the area of Florida, because people don't know. People don't know district. And talk about the people you're running against, because you're doing what I'm doing. You're running against Republicans, which I think is awesome.
Yep. It's a district in Florida that covers Hernando, Marion, Citrus, Sumter, and part of Lake counties. And it's the candidates. What you have is when our former Congresswoman Ginny Brown Waite was in, she then passed it on to Rich Nugent, who's been our congressman for several years, and he's done a great job. Rich did do it, but he's passing it on to his chief of staff, a young man named Justin Grabel. And I guess my concern there is that we don't get into this monarchical passing on of the mantra kind of thing. There's also another gentleman from Sumter County that is, I believe, in the farm business, who's also big with SwiftMud, which is a governmental agency here. And my argument is, look, guys, we keep putting governmental people in, and we keep putting politicians in. And the longer we do that, we keep sending them back to D.C. to get stuck in the same quagmire. A few years down the road, K Street owns them. And we need somebody principled enough to go there to tell even their own party when they're wrong, no. And that's what I don't see anymore. I'm praying that's what happens here. And I'm running into the standard battle. You have the system, and you have everybody telling you that you can't do it and you can't make it. But I've actually saved a quote from one woman that she gave me that told me that one of the individuals was the anointed, and that, I'm just not going to do it. It would be nice if I could, but I won't. And I refuse to believe that. I'm going to go out every place I can, beat every bush I can, ask every person to help they can, and just pray that I can get there and begin to be at least one voice, and hopefully raise up other voices, like you said at the beginning.
Okay.
Well,
Jack,
I got to throw something of yours in here, Rodney. Jack, it's at that point when you ask the question. If you walked into Eric Cantor's office down on K Street and asked him if Jack Martin could beat a powerful incumbent in a primary, and look at the reaction on his face and see what Eric Cantor would say about that. Yeah. Because I think Eric Cantor would tell you, Jack, you have a great chance of winning. There is always a path to a win against a primary incumbent, a powerful incumbent even. We've done the same thing here in Texas. I'm going to tell you, Bob Hall barely did it, but, man, with a powerful grassroots team, beat one of the most powerful incumbents in Texas, Bob Dewell. We see J.D. Winterregg, man, with some incredible momentum up in Ohio. Now, of course, he's not going after John Boehner anymore because Boehner chickened out. But why did Boehner chicken out? Because J.D. Winterregg was winning. We've got Matt Lynch up in Ohio running against Joyce. And I'm going to tell you, man, they look like they're going to win this. So it can be done, Jack. And I think not only can it be done, it has to be done. We've got to take and we've got to replace the squish we've got in Washington, D.C. with candidates like you that are going to stand up and be a statesman. There's a huge difference between a statesman and a politician. And we need to fill Washington, D.C. with statesmen.
Amen. What I need, to be honest with you, I need people who want a godly government, who want a conservative, moral government, a government where your gun rights aren't challenged at every corner. You're able to speak your religious beliefs without being pressured. And it's going to take people who have money, whether it's small amounts, $5, $10, but I'm going to need that support because my thinking on this is I need a very strong first quarter showing financially, so that they realize, okay, this guy is for real. And that's going to take conservatives all over the nation just being willing to throw a couple dollars in my direction.
Well, how can we help you, Jack? Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to, of course, put our social media, our considerable, by the way, social media following behind you. Do you have a website where people can go to today to check out? And I would urge people, Pastor Jack is not saying just go there and throw money at. Pastor Jack is saying go there and see what he's saying, see in detail what he believes in, and then throw him some money. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. But where can they go?
Exactly,
Jack,
and let me just say before I tell where you to go, you nailed it on the nose. I'm not wanting them just to throw money, but I'm saying I can't do this without support. But if they'll go to jackmartinforcongress.com, all lowercase, jackmartinforcongress.com. You have the list of my views, of my experience, of what I see to be the major problems. And then if a person wants to donate, there is a place there that they can click on to donate.
Well, I would urge all of our listeners to do that. We're also going to, like I said, throw our social media weight behind you because as Preacher Scotty said, we just need that. We need people to go there. And we need people. We need some confidence. You know what I'm saying? We need to put some confidence in people because people around the nation, Jack, not just in Florida, but people around the nation, they've lost their confidence. They're like, there's nothing we can do. Well, there is something you can do, and get out there and do it. Get off your butts and do it. I mean, quit. So tired of people complaining and then not doing. My dad told me something when I was young that stuck with me. He said, don't complain unless you have two answers to that complaint. In other words, if you have two solutions to whatever you're complaining about, fine. But if you don't, shut up. Quit complaining.
Exactly.
And I will say that about politics. Unless you're willing to do something about it, shut up. Stop complaining because it's the voters' problem. We can sit here and we can moan and whine about liberal politicians and this and that, but you do have the right to vote still.
Exactly.
So the right to vote also extends to the right to campaign to get other people to vote your way. So let's continue. We've been really successful, by the way, Jack, in helping people. We really are doing our best to help J.D. Winteregg, and we have an organization called Team Joe that is a kind of a, I don't know how you would describe it, but basically it's a quick reaction group all over the country. We see something and we react to it, and we've had a lot of success getting to people and getting to overturn the shenanigans that goes on. And we also use it for our own political devices. We will admit we don't raise money with it, but we do make people aware, and we will certainly use that to make aware of your campaign in Florida. Now, you mentioned your district and you mentioned the kind of the area that's in, but I need you to do one more thing, and that's what people want to hear is what big cities are you near? Like, you're south of Orlando, you're a little bit north of here, and you're a little bit east of where? Because people really want to know that.
Okay, we're north of Tampa. We are west of Orlando. Ocala is one of the bigger cities in our area. The other probably would be Spring Hill. But
now, what's the major university there in your district?
Would be in Tampa U. That would be Tampa U.
All right. Well,
So
you're kind of in the what you might describe as a rural part. I'm very familiar with Florida, as you know. You're kind of in a rural part of Florida, so you've probably got a big distance to cover in your travels. Yes.
Yes, so it's about an hour and 30 minutes from one end to the other.
That's a pretty big district, geographically speaking. If you go look at the districts in Miami or you go look at a district in Chicago, they're really tiny because you got all kinds of people crammed into there. You can drive across most of these districts in about 20 minutes. An hour and a half is a big district geographically. I don't know if most people know this, but districts, Congress, in other words, the House of Representatives, districts are made up of a number of people, not areas, but number of people. They're split up by population. Now, you recently, that district has been gerrymandered. In other words, it's been redrawn, correct?
Yes, this year it was completed. There's still a little bit of hassles in the courts over, but for now it's settled that these are the boundary lines, and we have a difference of kind of needs. We have an equestrian area down in Ocala, probably next to Lexington, Kentucky, the biggest horse area in the nation. Then you've got forestry, and then you've got agricultural, and it's growing more in the industrial area. So you've got a pretty good spread of people and of needs in our area.
Well, you would think that the equestrian people would be all behind you. Now, the swamp people, and I say that in a good way, the Everglades people, whom I love, I just am brothers with the people who live in the Everglades. I wish I lived in the Everglades. They ought to be for you. I mean, you just got to get your message out to them, basically. To me, and you know, tell me if I'm wrong. To me, if people are made aware of your candidacy, you're going to have a great shot at winning because you represent a lot closer to the values of the people that are in your district than the other candidates, right? Or am I wrong?
I would say without a doubt, and that's not taking anything away from any of the candidates, but I am clearly the strongest conservative, and for all the right reasons, for all the moral reasons. You can fix problems, but if you don't get to the core of the problem, you just go back that road again. And I think I have the best message. I have the best message to point out that what we need to do to get back and to make sure we get back on course and stay there.
Scotty, were you jumping in there?
Oh, I was just saying a great big amen because it's exactly what's got to happen. And it is a big district. I lived in St. Petersburg, Jack, just below the Skyway Bridge, the base of the Skyway Bridge. So I'm very familiar with that area. And let me tell you, here's the thing. Jack, and I'm talking to our listeners right now. I want you to pay attention, listeners. I want you to turn the television off. I want you to just listen to me and Rodney here for a second. Jack can't do this by himself. And I know I'm going to kind of start sounding like Jerry Lewis here, but Jack can't do it by himself. And any campaign's got two sides to their team. They got a grassroots effort on the ground. We need people that are there in Jack's district or even close. Maybe you're over in Orlando. Maybe you're up in St. Petersburg. Maybe you're close enough to come help him. Come help him on the ground. He's got a lot of ground to cover. Come help put out signs. Come help door knock. Do whatever Jack can help you do. Then you've also got the team in the cloud. You may be living in Alaska. You can still help Jack. You can get out. You might have friends down in Florida you can contact. You can direct your social media towards your connects and your network down in Florida. But it's going to take that because Jack can do this with a mighty team of people. That's how David Bratt beat Eric Cantor, with a lot of help. And it is very important. But amen, Jack. Absolutely amen. Because it comes always down to the foundational principles, the basic principles of why we believe what we believe. And we all agree on the solutions, Jack. I mean, on the problems. I agree with Barack Obama on most of the problems. I agree with Hillary Clinton on most of the problems. The difference is in the solutions. I don't believe that the federal government is ever a viable solution. The federal government cannot micromanage. And it all comes back down to those basics. And when the people understand the basics, Jack, I think they get the issues.
I agree. Totally agree.
I want to piggyback on that just for a second, Jack. I'm sorry for interrupting, but it used to be the job of a congressman. It used to be the job of a congressman to go to Washington and extract as much federal money as they can and bring it back to their district. Forever, that was the job number one of the congressman, okay? Now, the job of the congressman is to go to Washington and stop that. And that's why congressmen are no longer just beholden to their district. Congressmen are now everybody's congressman. They're not their district. They're not just for their district. Yes, of course you want to do well by your district and by your constituents. But listen, you got one vote, and a guy in Washington State, and a guy in Northern California, and a guy in Central Texas has one vote. When you go to vote on any given bill or any given piece of legislation, you have the same vote as every congressman in Washington. So if your vote is to stop this nonsense, well, then guess what? People all over the nation need to be piling on to help Pastor Jack and candidates like him. We're going to go there and do the right thing because we all know what's been going. If anybody who's been paying attention knows that in 2010, the nation suddenly woke up and went, whoa, what is this going on here? And they swept good conservatives into got the majority of the House of Representatives, almost got the Senate, and lo and behold, everybody relaxed, and 2/3 of those so-called conservative Republicans, well, they turned about face, and let's I call it like it is. They turned their backs, they turned coat on us.
Yep.
But the good news is, Jack, 1/3 of them stuck to their deal. And in 2014, we did the same thing. A historic election that swept in not only David Bratt, but just tons and tons of conservative. Well, same thing happened. Half of them turned face. Look at Paul Ryan. You can't even trust that dude anymore. So we have to be vigilant because we do still have the Mike Lees, the Ted Cruz, the Louis Gohmerts, the Trey Gowdies. We do have people that stick to what they said they were campaigning on. I believe Pastor Jack falls into that category as strong as anybody I've ever met. And so, Jack, let me tell you, you got to be tougher against these guys that you're running against because they're not going to let up on you. And I'm not saying attack in the traditional sense, but you got to let people know that you're the best guy for this job, and you got to let them know in no uncertain terms because you are. And it's going to be tough because you're a good guy. You're one of the good ones, and good people in politics. It's even tougher for good people than it is for bad people. So more power to you, my friend. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting you like crazy.
That's fine. I was going to say I agree with you, and I honestly think the message that I bring is going to silence a lot of any petty criticisms because one of the first things I hear a lot of times is, "Well, you're a preacher." So, well, number one, a preacher. I've been a chief executive officer of 4 churches. I've taken every one of them in the right direction. I've worked only with volunteers. I've made that work. I've been an inventory control supervisor for a corporation. I've held other positions of leadership that require business skills, and they want to make it out to be, well, all you do just like they do with churches. Do you do anything besides get up on Sunday and preach? And the fact of the matter is, I've been Ronnie, from the event here, but I've been a spokesman for Second Amendment rights. I've been a spokesman for the veterans. I'm out there on all fronts, and I'm out there for the right reason. Before I ever even thought of running for office, I was doing all of these things because I see the danger our country's in. I'm not sticking my finger up in the air. And somebody asked me a few weeks ago, they said, "What are you promising us?" And I said, I'm not promising you anything. I'm giving you my word, and my word is higher than some cheap promise that the things that I tell you I'll do when I go there, I'll do. I may not succeed at all of them, but I will do every one of them.
Bottom line is that congressmen and senators basically do two things. Fundamentally, they do two things. They vote on legislation, and they introduce or craft legislation. That's what they do. And all this other stuff is a bunch of crap. And for people that, like you say, for people to go out and make these grandiose promises, I'm going to be part of a movement and I'm going to spearhead and everything's going to change and unicorns are going to take craps all over this nation and we're going to have fizzies and pixies and pixie dust and it's going to be awesome. It's a bunch of crap. You do two things when you get to Washington. A, you vote on legislation, and B, you propose legislation or you craft legislation, try to get legislation passed. That's what you do, and your word is your bond. I mean, there's nothing else to it. And if I sound a little frustrated, it's because people don't understand. They don't take civics classes. And when I was in the 8th grade, you had to take a civics class, and we hated it. Oh, my God, we hated civics class. We had to take 2 civics classes in order to get into high school. I mean, I don't care what your grades were, and I don't care if your dad supplied, school equipment to the school. I don't care who you were. If you didn't pass, and it was pass-fail, if you didn't pass 2 civics courses, you didn't get into high school. Now, they don't even teach civics anymore, much less – I mean, that was a burden. I mean, we had to learn. Thank God we had Schoolhouse Rock back then. But we had to learn how legislation works. We had to learn the separation of powers. We had to have a fundamental understanding of the Constitution and how government works. People don't even know that anymore. People think that the president spends money. The president doesn't spend a dime. It's all appropriated by the House of Representatives, which Pastor Jack is running for. He's running for a seat in the House of Representatives who decides where, how, and how much money is spent in the country. I mean, it's that simple. And
people don't understand.
No, go ahead.
People don't understand the enumerated powers anymore. They've overlapped so badly in the last probably 15, 20 years. When you look at the Supreme Court right now, they basically legislate from the bench. That's what they did on the whole gay marriage, the whole same-sex marriage issue. Obama has been overriding Congress left and right, and Congress, to me, almost seems like they're on unemployment because they're basically there, but they're not doing anything. And if people understood how many things could have been changed if Congress would have stepped up and said, we're not appropriating the money for that. But they've allowed him to do what he does, and we have nobody to blame but ourselves. But it is the time to stop it. I've listened to people, for months now, who will fight the war on Facebook and on Twitter. And I got to tell you, Rodney, until they stop fighting it on Facebook and Twitter and fight it out where it has to be, continue the way we're going. But if they'll step up now, if they'll get behind, not just me, if they'll get behind any principled candidate who cares about our nation, we can turn this thing around. We can turn it back to where it was, and we can build America strong again.
We can do it very quickly. The Maoist, I call them Maoist wannabes. That's who I describe the Democrat Party. The Maoist wannabes. They've been at this, my friends, since a couple of years after World War II. They have been at this. They have been turning this country drip, drip, drip into something that is opposite of what made this country great. Okay? They've been at it for 50 years. Okay? Now you think, well, it's going to take 50 years to turn this big cruise ship around. Not true. The reason we can turn it around a lot faster than it got turned around the first time, 50 years, is because we have the truth on our side. They had to do it by subterfuge. Is that the right word, Scotty? Subterfuge? They had to do it. In other words, they had to trick us. They had to trick us, and they tricked us little by little by little. And you know what? We have the truth on our side. We can turn it around very, very quickly. I think we could turn this country around in 4 years. I'm not kidding you. Pastor, if we elect the right people, this thing can turn around in a minute because there are trillions of dollars offshore right now. And big businesses don't want to bring those trillions and trillions of dollars. It's called expatriated money. They don't want to bring it back to the United States. But listen, we get the right Congress, we get the right president, that money will come back in 2 seconds. This economy will be rocking and rolling, and we'll have to double the amount of immigration that we're doing right now. We're bringing in 1 million people a year. We'll have to raise that up to 10 million a year just to fill all the vacant jobs that will be available here in the United States. That's the problem.
Yeah,
that is the core of our problem.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
For years, they were what the liberals did was get judges elected, get officials elected. Like you said, it was a slow process, and they got them in place, and then they began to change laws and do stuff. But the people right now, when the people are given back the voice, when they have their representatives there who are listening to the people, you're going to see a wave of change in our country. And I agree with you. I think all that money that's been sitting outside our country, when they realize they can safely bring it back and they can use it to the best of their business and to the country's best, you're going to see that money flow right back into this nation.
That's right. Well, and Rodney, I got to throw this in here because, there's, you know me, I have had contact with probably at this point hundreds of different candidates running for office, from supervisors and local level all the way up to the presidency. And there's always a certain candidate that stands out for a real good reason. Bob Hall stands out because I sat and watched him in a meeting where everybody discussed, and Bob Hall was the only one who stood up in the room and said, all right, we got all this information, what do we do? And I just discovered something, Jack, that I looked at your website last week, and I just didn't catch this. Every candidate I've ever gone to a website has the first 2 tabs, basically their home or their about, and then the issues. You don't have an issues tab, Jack. Your tab says the crisis we face. Uh-huh. And I think that really kind of totally distinguishes you, as we've been trying to do this morning. You're not going up to Washington, D.C. because of issues. You're going up to Washington, D.C. because we've got a crisis and we got to fix it.
Exactly.
And that's the kind of mentality we need. And I want to give this little illustration. I'll pass it back to you, Jack, because I want to ask you another question. But I interviewed Rick Perry and Rick Santorum together on Blog Talk during the last election cycle, and there was a huge difference between the two of them. Rick Perry was out to solve problems. All Rick Santorum did was discuss the legislation that he wanted to write. And there's a huge difference in mentality between sending somebody that they'd like to be a congressman, they'd like to go up there and vote on Second Amendment rights, they'd like to vote on this, they'd like to enjoy the perks. You're going because we're in crisis, we're in a mess, we're at the edge. And I'm a firm believer we can turn this around, but it is going to take a platform like yours. I got to ask you my elevator question, Jack, then I'll pass you back over to Rodney and to go back and forth. But my elevator question is always this. When Pastor Jack was in his garage and he was 10 years old and he was sitting there thinking about what he wanted to do one day, was it a doctor, was it a fireman, or did you think, I think one day I want to run for Congress? How far back do your political leanings go? Kind of tell us a little bit about Jack so our listeners can get to know who Jack is.
I think really I didn't get politically active until the Vietnam War era. My stepbrother had gone to Vietnam, and he had come home. He had won 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Vietnamese Crosses of Gallantry. And when he came home to John Kerry and the Vietnam Veterans Against the War. And they so pounded him back then that he actually threw his medals in the trash. I salvaged one. I have it here in my office right now where I'm speaking. I salvaged one of them. He wouldn't let me get the second one. And I grew so bitter at Jane Fonda and John Kerry for what they did. It's like you made people hate our country. And it began to build there, and it slowly built. But then where it really broke out big was September 11, 2001. I've been a chaplain for the fire department for 17 years, and I go in the houses that are on fire with them. Sometimes I run calls with them. I know what those guys do, and what happened on 9/11 when they were running into that building, knowing a lot of them went into that building knowing they were never coming out. And I thought to myself, how did we ever get to the place that we got? That Sunday morning that followed, I preached a message on the blessings and cursings of God. A nation that will do God's bidding and will be blessed. A nation that doesn't do His bidding, they'll literally be attacked on all sides. And I said, people, part of our problem began when we took God out of everything we did. And the more that we've done that, the more vulnerable we've made ourselves. And I said to them that morning, I said, right now people are lining up to give blood around the block, they're waving flags, they're going to church. I said, but if they're not doing that 2 years from now, this nation's going to be in greater trouble than it's ever been in before. And I have watched from that point on the progressive demise of our nation, and I have begun to speak out more and more. I do what's known as Pulpit Freedom Sunday with the Alliance Defending Freedom, where you preach a message once a year that you actually name candidates, you name their beliefs, and you in the end you say, this is who I believe lines up closest to the Christian view, and then you send that DVD to the IRS with a letter telling them that you did it and you wanted them to have a copy. They've never taken a single church to court for that, but it came out of that I realized the gates of hell have got to be stormed. We can't sit back and hope we'll get our land back. We have got to take it back.
Amen, Jack. Amen. Rodney, you there? Make sure Rodney hasn't dropped. No, amen, Jack. And I got a point.
About that. I was on mute there. Go ahead, Scotty.
That's all right, Rodney. I was going to you quoted Scripture, and you didn't just quote Scripture this time, Rodney. You quoted my entire Old Testament course, which takes about 75 weeks to go through at 2 hours per week. And that was when you said, word is bond. And, that was the best description, Rodney. We're going to have to go back and we're going to have to type that out because that was the best description in the world of our elected process. We send Jack to Washington, D.C. Jack's telling us right now that he's going to stand firm on his principles, exactly. How he's going to work while he is up there, what kind of servant he is going to be, and he's making us a promise. Now, he can go to Washington, D.C., and he can either keep that promise or not. And, the Old Testament story starts with 4 great promises in Genesis chapter 12 with the beginning of Abraham, the story of the Hebrews. 4 great promises. And the entire Old Testament is based on those 4 promises. And here's the concept. God says he's going to do this if we will do this. Yeah. I guarantee you God will keep his promise. Exactly. And that is the foundation. That's the foundation of the covenants. The covenants, the Old Covenant, the covenant of Moses, the New Covenant, the covenant of Christianity, they're both a great big promise. And we know that God's going to keep his promise. And that is the key. That has been the key to our great nation. For the first many decades of our great country, every single person that was in Washington, D.C. had a faith. And they relied on that faith, and they believed in a God, and they believed in a creator, and they believed in moral principles. What has pulled us away is we get more and more in Washington, D.C. that don't. But I'll pass it back to you, Rodney, but I'm going to tell you, you totally quoted Scripture this morning because that's the foundation of God's plan of salvation, is the promise, is word is bond.
Amen.
Pastor Jack, I do this show for three reasons. Number one, I love to hear myself talk. Number two, I love to goof around and entertain people. And number three, I try to see how many times I quote Scripture, because I don't know when I'm doing it. That's why I'm always asking Scotty, hey, did I quote Scripture today? So it's good to have him there to blow up my ego. To blow up my ego and keep me honest. It's great, because so much of this, and people don't realize that. I don't know, 1% of it, but people don't realize that so much of this is sitting right there in your Bible. I mean, it's right in there. You just got to find where it is, or you got to read the whole thing. I don't know about reading the whole thing, especially that chapter on Numbers. Oh my God, I started reading that and I went, no, I'm going to flip up back over to Daniel, something I can understand a little bit more. But Scotty introduced me to something, Pastor Jack, and it was the Book of Judges, and I didn't know it, but I was actually writing. I was writing a story, a manuscript, a screenplay, whatever you want to talk about, that had to do with that very chapter of the Bible. And it was really interesting the way Scotty was describing how it's talking about what's going on, what actually was more like the 1990s, but still going on today.
It's exactly.
And it's all right there. And of course, it seems almost natural that the Maoist wannabes would go after Christianity and go after the Bible, and because that's the core of what we're talking about. I mean, it's all there.
I totally agree. In fact, when you look through Judges, it's a repetitive story of what happens when man turns his eyes away from God. He cries out to God, and God comes through and bails him out. And man lives for a little while, and then he gets back into his own circle of things, and he forgets God again. But another book that's really interesting in the Bible is Nehemiah, because it's after the city is in ruin, after Jerusalem is in ruin. And Nehemiah says to the king, can I go back to my land? I want to try to rebuild it. He goes back, and he's honest in his assessment. He goes out at night, and he looks, and everything's broken down. But he goes to the people and he tells them, look, God is with us. We can do this. And one by one, it says, every one of them put their hand to it. Each one took a section of the wall. They took a gate. They all began to rebuild. You do read of one or two people who refused to. But overall, everybody else chipped in. And in record time, they rebuilt the wall. And the city was secure again. We can do that with the United States of America.
Yes, we can. The other night I watched. I love movies, Pastor Jack. All kinds of movies, and it's as a result, it's very difficult for me to find a movie that A, I haven't seen, or B, that's worth watching. So I search and I search and I search, and I usually come up short. So I end up watching a movie I've seen 1,000 times. The other night I watched the movie, I think it's called Exodus, Kings and Gods. It's the story of Moses. And it's not the old Charlton Heston Ten Commandments one. It's the modern version with the guy who plays Batman. And his name escapes me right now because I'm bad with names. But Sigourney Weaver is in there for some reason, and it's just really bizarre casting. But Hollywood knows for a fact that the Bible is money for them. Yep. There's one religion in Hollywood, and it is colored green, okay?
Yep. And
they know that if they put out a movie like Noah or like, something that has at least touching around the fringes of Christianity, Judeo-Christianity, Christian law and morality, or a story from the Bible, they know they got a winner. They know that because it's money in the bank, and that's more important than anything. Now, there's great examples of that throughout the entertainment history, but this one that I watched Noah, with our buddy Russell Crowe, who I'm convinced is a conservative, but it was just laughable. I mean, the special effects and the things that they added to the story of Noah was I'm not kidding you, it was laughable. But this one, Christian Bale played Moses. This one was really funny, and I'm not in a mocking way. I just watch it with this eye of, oh my God, what are they going to do to this story? And I'm not going to bore you with the dozens and dozens of things they did to completely adulterate the story of Moses, but one of the parts that I really laughed at was just the seminal moment in Moses' life when he parts the Red Sea, okay? And, the Jews are getting away, and then the king, the king has second thoughts, and he's going to go kill him and destroy him. And instead of parting the Red Sea, they intimate that it was just coincidence that there was a tsunami and the water receded, and they got to go across, and then the water comes back and kills all the. Anyway, I got to tell you, I had the best laugh, and I'm just like, well, you know what? I hope that people at least get interested in the actual story of Moses, because Jack, the reason I got involved in Christianity was not because people were preaching to me, and I mean, I'm not trying to knock any reason why people get involved, but how I personally got involved was when I was a kid. I went to the theater in Chicago, and I saw the musical Jesus Christ Superstar, and it was great. I mean, it was just, at that point in my life, it was the greatest thing I had ever seen. And, I didn't know anything about the Bible. I didn't know anything about Christianity. I didn't know that much about Jesus, the life of Jesus Christ, to be honest. But I didn't know who King Herod was. I had no idea. All I knew was that he was this funny dude running around the stage singing. And it got me interested in the Bible. Now, I know that's crazy, and I'm not suggesting that's how we proceed, but we do have to attack this problem from the culture side. And I'm convinced it's not. Facts and figures don't work. Jack, I've been trying it for 25 years, and it doesn't work. Things have got, no pun intended, progressively worse. We have to attack it like you are, from the cultural side. I mean, am I going nuts?
No, you're spot on, and I think that's the difference between fixing the problem and putting a patch on it, is that you can come in, you could put a balanced budget amendment in and stop spending more than we have. You can start reversing some of the social trends. But if you look only right now at the trouble in the neighborhoods where the gun violence is, you look at the statistics here, whether they're white or black, you see how many of those kids come from homes that are broken, that their dads abandoned them years ago. The moral trail to the root of our problem is the heart of the problem, and you can fix all the surface items, but until you fix, I look at it this way: the first unit that God ever created was the family. Then you have them creating human government, and then you have them creating the church. All three of them are models. You need headship, leadership, you need cooperation, teamwork, you need, fiscal responsibility, moral responsibility. And when the family breaks down, the government breaks down, the church breaks. I over the last 33 years in ministry, I can watch how the church is broken down by how the family is broken down.
My dad used to tell me that when I was younger. He said, every problem you got it leads right back to the family. Every single problem, every single problem you got, without exception, leads right back to the family. And that's something you don't need to tell an adult. That's something you need to tell a child. And yet, an adult, an intelligent adult, maybe somebody you respect and a friend, and you respect them personally, you respect them professionally, and they're intelligent, and they do the right thing by everybody, and yet they'll turn right around and they don't believe that the family is at the beginning of every problem you can identify. You can trace it, and you don't have to, go around the pond or over a rock. It's a direct line, and it's so obvious to me. And
well,
yet,
I think you see a lot of times for an individual, an adult, to admit that it's a family, they have to admit their own failure. They have to admit their own moving away from God. If you ask the average person today who's my age, who went to either parochial school or they went, to church when they were kids, they had Sunday school and children's church, that haven't been in church in 20 or 30 years, and you ask them if it was different back then, they'll acknowledge it was different, but they'll give you some off-the-wall reason. Life was simpler, less complicated. And the truth of the matter, it's none of the above. It's that the family has disintegrated.
Jack, we'd love to have you on the show. We're going to let you go here, but I want to reiterate some of the things we've been talking about, and that's I want you to mention your website again. Now, listen, Jack can't win this alone, and unlike Pastor Jack, I am not a guy who I'm trying to put this into the right words. I will hawk you. Let's put it that way. I am going to hawk Pastor Jack, and Pastor Jack's too good of a guy to do that. So I'm going to do it for him over there to his website. And throw him a couple bucks after you read what he has to say, read what he believes in, beyond this radio show. Jack, I hate these debates. I hate these Republican and Democrat debates because it's not a good way to pick a president. In fact, it's the worst way to pick a president. Who has the best zinger? Hey, let's vote for the guy that had the best zinger. And that's what we end up doing. That's how we end up with clowns like Clinton and Obama. And I watched that debate last night with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. It's a clown show. I mean, it is really. I sit there and I go, do people really look at these two and say, gee, both of them would make a good president? Really? Are you that stupid? And that's what debates have done. So I suggest going to where people are articulating their views, articulating their philosophy, and articulating exactly what they would do if they are honored to be sent to Washington to represent their constituents. And again, these congresspeople are not just for the districts anymore. That's done with. A congressman in Central Florida is your congressman, no matter where you live. That is your congressman because it is a guy or a woman that needs to go there and stop the shenanigans. So please, do what you can do. Get on your horseback. Get on your social media. Go over to let your friends know. Get over there to Pastor Jack's site and do something. Quit your whining and moaning and do something. Let me do the whining and moaning for you. You get over there and help him out because Jack can't do this by himself. And I know he's not going to scream and yell like I'm going to. But unfortunately, you got to scream and yell nowadays, Jack, to get anybody to do anything, it seems like. But we're going to let you go here. Thank you for being on Conover U. And why don't you leave us with some parting gifts? Why don't you, Pastor Jack?
Well, let me just say I want to thank both of you for letting me be on because for America to turn back, we're going to need godly, principled people, and the only way people at my level can do that is with the help of the grassroots of people. If they would be willing to go to jackmartinforcongress.com and make any size donation. I look at it this way: if 500,000 people gave $1, I would have what I need for the whole campaign. And so if people will just give whatever they're able to give. My word, when I talked about my word over promises, the one thing my wife said to me with the campaign, she said, honey, promise me that you won't change who you are in the Lord if you go there. And I said, I give both you and the Lord my word that I will come back a better, stronger Christian than the one that I went there, because I will have fought the battle and won some battles and done what I've can. So on that note, again, I thank you both for letting me be on. God bless you both.
All right, Pastor Jack. Thanks again. Scotty, are you still there?
I am here, and I'm ready to push the button.
Oh, my God, my favorite.
Take this pink ribbon off my eye.
Well, that can only be one thing.
And it's no big surprise.
That can only be one girl, my favorite girl, Jennifer. Jennifer, the editor
Hi.
of collegenews.com, that you're here. I'm so happy, and you're here. Not early, but you're here. Whoa, we got you for a good long time. What's happening, baby?
Oh, hey, I'm just glad to be here. I love hearing your guys' voice every morning. You know, they say Mondays are supposed to be bummers, but they make me happy talking to you. So, good morning.
I'm going to write a song. I'm going to write a song called "I Like Mondays." It's the opposite of that song. I don't like Mondays. Remember that one from back when we were kids? Anyway, this has been an interesting week, to say the least. I don't know, Jennifer, because we didn't talk, but I don't know if you saw the Republican debate, and I don't think anybody watched the Democrat debate last night except me. But in the Republican debate, some of the shine came off of Trump, and I think there was I couldn't figure it out. I tell you what, I could not figure it out. Scotty thinks he has a handle on it, and he's probably right in that this whole thing is a show, man. And I mean, Trump is the ringmaster. And there was a couple of things I really loved about what he did. There was a couple of things that really disgusted me about what he did. Overall, pretty entertaining debate. Everybody knows my disdain for debates and how stupid they are. Because substantively, you don't learn a darn thing. But did you see the debate, Jennifer?
I did.
What were your impressions?
Well, when Trump and Cruz were like arguing, I felt like it was an episode of The Office. You know, like this awkward moment where the audience sort of like feels weird and wants to look away. Like, well, what is going on here? This is a presidential debate. And I'll tell you something. This is true. My husband would probably kill me for telling you guys this, okay? My husband has been in love with Trump since the beginning. Like Trump in Trump's corner the whole entire time. He's an outsider. He's going to get things done. We need something different, et cetera, et cetera. Has never wavered in his support for Trump, even when Trump made that comment about, stuff coming out of Meghan's whatever, which I found very offensive. And, just some of the other bloviating things that you're like, geez, Trump, you're good, but you say all this crazy stuff. For the very first time, this whole presidential cycle, after that debate, my husband said, Cruz might have won me over there. So take that for what it's worth. It's a one example, but I'm telling you, not that he still doesn't like Trump. He does, trust me. But he just was impressed by Cruz and, thinks, maybe Cruz has earned his vote there because he's so well-spoken and so intelligent. And like a month ago, he was complaining that Cruz's voice was too whiny. So you see there's been an evolution in my husband's thought process. And so that's kind of just a window into the eye of the average voter, someone who's just been kind of watching this. And I found it interesting. And I'm sort of torn between Trump and Cruz in a way, too, because despite all of Trump's flaws, and there's many, gosh, I bet you he could get things done. Now, could he get us into World War III? Possibly. Not that we're not already there with Islamic terrorism anyway. But, you got to weigh the pros and cons there with that one. But I guarantee you there'd be a wall. And as somebody who lives in Southern California, that is a huge issue for me. So that's kind of where I stand.
I think you nailed it, and I was hoping, against hope, that at least something that came out of this debate would be something like your husband, like the situation you described with your husband, which is, maybe I should take a second look at this Cruz guy because there it is in black and white. I mean, it was just on display for everybody to see how calm and collected he was, and it's kind of a steady hand issue. And I agree with your husband totally. I still love Trump. I still love what he's saying and what he's doing, and I do believe that the core of America's problem lies in the fact that political correctness has made us all afraid, not me, but has made most people afraid, and certainly politicians, certainly Republican politicians. And I love that Trump just tells everybody basically F you. And yeah, as he does say some things that I'm sure offends women and offends this person, offends that person. But you know what? I do like the fact that Trump doesn't care. And I do like the fact, do you remember the part where one of the moderators said, well, Nikki Haley gave the Republican response, blah, 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 and said, you're the angry candidate. We don't need an angry candidate. And Trump said, you're damn right I'm angry. I'm angry, folks. I'm going to have that mantle. I am angry. God, I love that. I mean, I just was almost voting. I was so going to vote for Trump if the vote was like a minute later.
Can I toot my own horn a little bit?
Go.
Quick? Well, remember that headline that I wrote for JoeForAmerica.com that was shared over 100,000 times?
Yes, I do remember.
The headline was, yes, I like Trump. Yes, I am angry. People are angry. And you know what? We have a right to be angry. I'm so sick and tired of like, oh, you're angry, you angry person. You're an angry person. Yeah, we're angry. That doesn't make us bad people, and that doesn't make us not rational people. And how come when the Black Lives Matter folks can be angry, that's all fine and good, and God bless those people, et cetera, et cetera. But, a white person gets angry, and all of a sudden, oh, what's wrong with you, you angry white person? You're disgusting. Get away from me. Like, there's such a double standard there. Yeah, we're angry. Our country has been flushed down the toilet by Barack Hussein Obama, and we're pissed. And the Democrats. He had help.
Yeah,
and the establishment Republicans. They were sitting around picking their whats too as he was doing the whole thing. So there's a lot of blame to go around.
Yeah, I think that Barack has gotten more help from Republicans than he has from Democrats. I really do. They could have stopped Obamacare. They could have stopped Obamacare in 2010. It's been 6 years, buddy. They could have stopped it, but they didn't. Instead, they used it as an election tool. They put their own political power ahead of the wishes of the people, the very people that voted them in, and it's disgusting. And am I angry? That's why I was so happy with Trump's answer to that, because any other politician would have answered that Nikki Haley question like this. They would have said, well, I think maybe Governor Haley is misinterpreting anger for passion. I'm very passionate about what I believe in, and I'm wanting to screw you. I'm angry. Anybody who's not angry, what's wrong with you? You're not angry? Boy, I'd be angry. I don't care who you are. And the idea that being angry somehow makes you, you're disqualified. You don't think Barack Obama has been an angry person his whole life? Look at who he married. You want to see anger? Listen to Michelle Obama for 2 seconds. Now, I'm not knocking her because she's angry. She has her own reasons to be angry. The other day, she gave a speech where she said, the problem with America is white people. Oh, you mean the people who put you into the White House? Those white people? Or just some white people? And you know what? It's okay, like you say, it's okay for her to be angry. But it's not okay for me to be angry? Yeah, it is. And even if it isn't, I'm angry anyway. But that's beside the point. Jennifer, what the heck is going on in the college campus since we last talked to you? Anything we should know about? And say hi to Scotty.
I do.
He's over there.
Scotty. There's a lot of the saying, which is kind of depressing because you're thinking, look, we've made fun of these safe spaces and these ignorant college students who are criticizing the First Amendment for so long. You'd think that they're going to finally wise up. No. We have Northwestern University's president writing an op-ed in defense of safe spaces, and we got students poo-pooing the First Amendment still, and it makes you want to bang your head against the wall. But, there's one thing I want to follow up on from last week, and that is this. Remember I told you about that professor that a student had recorded him saying that, white conservative men are more dangerous than radical Islamic jihadists. So that was a story that we talked about last week. And this week we have a great rebuttal to that with this professor. There are good professors out there, and there's a professor in Florida State College at Jacksonville who wrote to us and said, hey, look, there's this study that the New York Times and CNN and Time Magazine and all the left-leaning news outlets love to cite by New America Foundation, which argues that far right-wing attacks, these so-called homegrown extremists, are more dangerous than the violent jihadist attacks or, radical Islam. And this is a study that's touted by the professor that we caught on tape, but many, many others. It's just the lefties love to tout this study. But this professor has taken a look at the study, and he completely debunks it. First of all, the study doesn't count the deaths on 9/11. The study doesn't factor in the extraordinary security measures, such as the Patriot Act and the creation of Homeland Security, that was put into place after 9/11 that prevented a large number of attempted attacks by Islamic terrorists on American soil. But then this is a really interesting statistics. This professor also points out in arguing why radical Islamic terrorists are much more deadly and dangerous than the so-called homegrown terrorists. Did you know that even after, he's like, so I'll give you this, even if we don't count the victims of 9/11, suggesting it's an anomaly, even if we just looked at the numbers of deaths, that 50% of the total number of deaths due to extremism are because of radical Muslims, even though they only make up 1% of the total population. That's a really surprising statistic if you think about it. Muslims only make up 1% of the entire U.S. population, and yet they're still responsible for about 50% of the total number of deaths due to extremism. But the professor also points out that this study literally ignored more than a half dozen examples of radical Islamic terrorism deaths. The most notable exception, the most notable omission was those Beltway snipers. Remember in 2002, John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo, who were like taking a sniper and shooting up people on the freeways surrounding D.C. They had converted to Islam and they were excited to set up a terrorist training camp in Canada and all this. But the New America Foundation study that the New York Times loves to cite didn't count them as radical Islamic terrorists, homegrown radical Islamic terrorists, and that's just one of a whole parade of examples they ignored. So the long and the short of it is this. If you ever hear a professor or, the left-wing media say, the white extremists are more dangerous than the radical, Islamic jihadists, no, that has been debunked. You can look up our study on thecollegefix.com. Professor Holt, he's got a whole analysis on his website as well that we link to. It's just dead wrong. So I was really glad to get that rebuttal in there from the other professor who was trying to tell us a whole class of 250, 300 freshmen, it's the white conservatives that are really the terrorists around here. Don't believe it. The truth is out there. So that's something that I'm excited to share with your audience. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, that's good that there's at least somebody, paying attention. But we were, I don't know if you heard the interview with Pastor Jack, but we were talking about the fact that in many, many decades, basically since after World War II, and especially it got accelerated during the Vietnam War and after the Vietnam War ended, that it's been a drip, 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 effort by Maoist wannabes, and I would include Secretary of State John Kerry in that group, to put people in positions in media in academia, judges, various political office, slowly but surely, and I can't explain this part, but slowly but surely, turning this country into the opposite of what made it great, which this country is the most benevolent country in the history. There's the most free, the most opportunity, and the least racist. If you consider the incredible diversity that we do have here, and I don't see Saudi Arabia taking in refugees from Syria. Well, why not? Well, because they're kind of smarter than that. I mean, what if you had any brains? Why would you? If the FBI, if the head of the FBI is telling you we don't know who these people are, why would you take in anybody? And it's insane. I mean, it's just, listen, common sense, Jennifer, is a burden because you have to deal with people who don't. You have to deal with people who don't have common sense, and it drives you nuts because common sense is just, and people who don't have it. Right. I don't understand. You know, I'm not smart enough. I don't have a degree in psychology. I'm not smart enough to understand why you wouldn't see something so simple. So naturally, I kind of, a red flag goes up, and I say, well, maybe there's a political agenda here, and it's not a common sense thing. Quite often, it's just a common sense thing. But it's good to hear that there's at least a couple of professors out there setting things straight. And, of course, we have you. We have you to spread the word on these goofballs that are living in this sterile environment on campus where they can't be fired, they can't be criticized, and all they can do is all that can happen is a student sneaks in a cell phone video of them being idiots. And golly, it's been going on for a long time, and finally there's a way to get the information out to people. Thank God.
Well, yeah, and there's never a dull moment. We have an article about the leader, the co-founder of the Black Lives Matter movement was giving a speech at American University in D.C. So one of our student reporters said, hey, I want to go, I want to film it, I want to report on it. And the university was like, no, you can't film it. So he goes in with his cell phone camera, and he gets the lady saying on his cell phone camera, record the cops, record all the cops. I mean, there's hypocrisy. We got a story. I mean, it's ridiculous. We got a story about a professor who's requiring her students to write an 8-page commitment to social justice. I mean, she doesn't even try to hide her bias. She's just right out there with it. 8 pages of social justice. Social justice is one of those left-wing, words that, social justice to them is fighting for the whole slew of secular progressive causes that they champion. And the professor wanted the students to write on it. One gal wrote on the Rate My Professors website, which is a way that students can warn each other about other classes. She's like, just write what the teacher wants and get the heck out of there and never look back, So these kids have this mentality where just keep your head down and just push through, and these crazy professors, and once you get your degree, you don't have to worry about it anymore. Just get out of there, man. We have another story about how Penn State wants students to report microaggressions to administrators. I mean, every little thing. Oh, he called me a name. Johnny called me a name, teacher. He looked at me funny. He made fun of me. I mean, my God, is this preschool? Is this preschool? I mean, while I'm sitting there telling my 8-year-old daughter, don't be a tattletale. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never. What are we teaching these kids? They're so freaking narcissistic.
Teaching them to be a bunch of pussies. Teaching them to be a bunch of pussies. That's what we're doing.
My point, there's never a dull moment at the college. Trust me. It's just like every single day, some new absurdity. It's just insane.
In 1944, men between the ages of approximately 16 and 25 went over to Normandy Beach. They stormed the beach. They got into little tin cans and went underneath the Pacific Ocean to fight Tojo's Navy. They trudged across Europe in their bare feet. They went into the deserts of northern Africa to fight Rommel's tanks. Almost certain death for most of them. That's what men did, and I call them men, 1944, ages approximately 16, 20. You know what they do now? I'm offended by your words. You made fun of me. You made a joke. What happened? When did we become a bunch of pussies? I mean, it seems like it happened very recently. Honest to God, it seems like it's happened in like the last 5 years. Am I going nuts?
Well, it's the way that we've been raising our children over the last 2 decades. You remember back in the day, children were singing and not heard, or, they put themselves to bed, they brushed their own darn teeth, they gave themselves their own darn bedtime. I mean, it's like the world didn't revolve around children. Nowadays, I mean, you can't go through your Facebook feed without seeing like 50 pictures of somebody's kid, talking about how wonderful their kid is. I mean, everything the kid wants, you're holding their little bathrobe on the way to brush their teeth, you're putting them to bed is like a 30-minute ritual. You got like 8 steps, you're kissing them on the forehead, you're telling them, oh, you read a book, how wonderful, you're giving them a standing ovation. I mean, these kids are raised to think that they're royalty. And then we wonder why they turn around and act like it. Well, I'm trying to instill in my kids, like, hey, look, the world doesn't revolve around you.
Well, here's another thing, and you certainly know more about parenting than I do. I've not raised a kid from scratch yet. I get used ones, and I raise the used ones. But I think I'd probably be good at raising a kid from scratch. I think I would do a decent job. But I will tell you, there's no way I'm doing it unless I have a great mommy like you, Jennifer. I would love to have a great mommy like you, and then I would do it. But here's the point. When you get out in that big, bad world, you're not going to have your parents. You're not going to have your government. You think you're going to have your government, but you're not. You're not going to have people that will come to your rescue and have all this empathy for your little sensitive problems. You're going to be out in the big, bad world, and you're going to get your ass kicked, okay? You're going to get your ass kicked all over the field because you're a pussy. And people don't want to hear that. And sorry, you think Donald Trump's a pussy? No, he's not. None of you. I mean, I am shocked, I say, at the pussification of America. And I don't understand it. Yes, I'm an old fart. I grant you that. But things have not changed in the grand scheme of life. And they never will. And that is, young people are not stupid. They're just impressionable. All right? Number 2, the world is, and always has been, a pretty rough place. I mean, you go back to the days of the caveman, and there were wars. Why? Because some people wanted the good watering holes, and they wanted the good-looking chicks. And some women wanted to be protected to raise a good family, and they wanted to be near the good watering holes. And since then, things have not changed that much. People still want the good watering holes. People still want the good mates. People still want a safe place for their children. And that's all over the world. And they're going to fight to get that. And they're going to fight you to the death, and they're going to kick your butt around the street, and they're going to be greedy, and they're going to do all of these things. And I don't know. I don't know how people survive not knowing that. I'm not saying you walk around and you be a jerk, but at least keep one eye on the road. Do you know what I'm saying? Keep in mind that that's the world you live in. And I mean, would you agree with at least the part about me being an old fart, Jennifer?
At least that part. At least.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, look at Obama. I mean, you want to talk about am I allowed to say, yeah, I mean, I don't want to be crass, but, P-U-S-S-Y. I mean, have you seen how he throws a baseball? Have you seen his mom jeans? I mean, and then those fake tears. I mean, you remember when Al Gore was accused of being a beta male? No, Obama takes the cake. He's like a beta male on steroids, right?
He's a beta.
And by the way, look, I don't want to say that I don't respect. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I don't think the way to go through life is to be, a tyrant and a bully, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some value in confidence, in standing up for yourself, in setting an example of strength. I mean, when did strength become a bad thing? When did masculinity become a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. Don't believe these leftists and these feminists who are trying to wussify all men. I mean, no, be a man. We like it. I like it. Trust me. But yeah, there's been this paradigm shift in America thanks to these feminist professors and these, wimpy liberals.
I've been saying this for a while now that, I'm torn. When it comes to political correctness, I'm torn because I know how bad it is for the country. It's terrible. But the really great thing about political correctness is it makes it real easy for me to make a good living. And it really does. Because people don't want to hear political correctness. People want to hear the opposite. People want to hear the unvarnished truth. And so political correctness has allowed me personally to have a wonderful life. And having said that, I still hate it. But I make a living hating it. So it's kind of, it's almost like I got a government job. I don't want to really solve the problem, then I'll be out of job. But the other thing is, and this is just, oh, golly, it's not been going on for a long time. And maybe it hasn't, but I've just been conscious of it very recently because I have noticed a marked change in the way women treat me in the last, I would say, 10 years, especially the last couple of years. And that is,
really?
I get taken back a little bit the way women treat me, only because I don't kowtow to them. I don't try to be a woman. I don't try to be like, I can't explain it. I guess I'm coming back into style. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the women look around and they go, gee, there's some attributes that I like in men, and they're few and far between anymore. I mean, I'm not saying I'm anything special. I'm not. I'm just me. And I think what you're saying, Jennifer, is that some of those attributes are kind of instinctual, if you will, for
Sure.
what women want. Now, having said that, what I know about women, you could put in a thimble. I admit, I don't know what the hell. I don't even know what the hell you're saying at the time. But I do know this: there has been a change in the last 10 years in the way women are looking at men, and they're looking at them like, "What happened? Where are the men? Where are they?" And they're looking around, going, "Where'd they go?" When you see a guy spending an hour and a half in front of the mirror getting ready to go out for the day. I'm not saying everybody should be like me and spend no time looking in the mirror, but come on, you're going to wear makeup. You're going to this thing where men are getting their toes done. I just okay, if that's what floats your boat, fine, but don't be surprised if women look at that and go, "What kind of a pussy are you?" Just set me straight, will you, Jennifer? Honestly, somebody needs to.
Look, there's been a change in America, over the last 2 decades where this notion of manhood and what it is to be a man has been altered. The left is winning in a way. I mean, with, the rise of transgender, celebrations, and the rise of, again, look at our president. You're not off base, in thinking like, what's going on here? What's the change? But I think it's important to remember that we don't always have to believe what the left-wing media tells us. We don't always have to believe what Hollywood tries to tell us. That there are men out there who are real men who take care of their families and acting according to the way God created them. Look, God created the family structure. It says this in Ephesians, and I know Scotty will back me up, that the man is the leader of the household, and the woman defers to him, but not in a submissive way. She loves him as he loves the church. It's the way that God set up the family. And it goes against our natural God-given creation when we try to flip that around. when we try to deny the way we were created. And, try as we might, America and the globe, we will never defeat God and his ideal for creation. That's why I'm a happy gal, because I'm not trying to fight it, okay? I'm over here respecting my husband, and he's loving me back, as Ephesians calls us to do. And it works. And it's a beautiful thing. And we don't have to fight against our own nature. But everybody who's out there trying to fight against their own nature, I mean, inside, I guarantee you, they're still trying to fill a hole in their heart, and it's not. They're like, why isn't this working? Why isn't this working? Why aren't I satisfied? Why aren't I fulfilled? And they want more, and they do. It gets worse and worse. They're like a frog in that boiling water that just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I'm telling you, the real secret is over here with the people who understand that God is in charge and live and obey Him, and there's freedom in that. I'm telling you, there's freedom in that. And, so I just hope and pray that the rest of the country wakes up. I wanted to get Scotty excited because I know he loves when we quote the Bible, so I was just going to take the reins and do it.
And I'm so glad you did, Jennifer. And somehow we've gone 10 minutes already past our overtime. But, man, great conversation because of that. I am so glad, Jennifer, that you brought up the sticks and stones may break my bones, because that's one of my big pet peeves. We were raised with sticks and stones may break your bones, but names will never hurt you. And they've changed that. They don't say that in school anymore. They actually say the opposite. That names do hurt you, and it's not broke down that simple. And here's how I always explain it, and I think, Jennifer, you'll agree with me 100%, and I can almost guarantee you're doing this with your children. There's two sides to this. I, as a Christian, and I, as a human being, and I teach my girls, you as human beings, names can hurt people. So be careful what you say. But let me explain something to you. Your entire life, people are going to call you names. They are going to say mean things about you. In your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, you're still going to have to deal with people. And so you learn to throw that stuff over your shoulder. I'm teaching you to throw it over your shoulder, and I'm also teaching you, be careful what you say to somebody else, because that's biblical. The Bible says, watch the tongue. James says, watch the tongue. But the mentality that is being taught in the school leaves out the sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me concept. They leave that out, and all they talk about is, you can't say something mean to somebody, or you gotta, and that's where political correctness comes in. I watch my speech. I watch what I say. I watch how I talk to other people. But it's not because I might offend them, and I don't worry about what's going to offend them. I worry about that 5 seconds of what I'm going to say is going to offend them. I worry about if I'm going to hurt them, if I'm going to be hurtful. But I do that on a personal level. And so it's a great discussion, Jennifer. As always, of course, that's a message that if they started teaching in our colleges, we could absolutely change society.
I wish.
And so, Jennifer, thanks. Rodney, thanks. Jack, what a great interview. I don't know how much, Jennifer, you got to hear of Jack's interview. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. The kind of people that we need in Washington, D.C. Go to jackmartinforcongress.com. Go to the College Fix. Is it the or College Fix? I don't want to get the wrong one, Jennifer.
The College Fix. Please, how you're out of it, put the, or there could be trouble.
That's right. I made the mistake of following that once. I want to do it again.
Yeah, okay.
.com, and of course, great time with the doctor as well. We've got some great things coming up on Conover U, as well as Contending for Truth Radio. Friday, we are in the middle of the story of King Saul, speaking of Bible in the Old Testament, and I'm going to tell you, if you've never studied the story in the Old Testament, when you picture King Saul, I want you to picture Jack Nicholson, okay? Because if I were casting the movie about King Saul, Jack Nicholson would be who I would pick to play King Saul. King Saul's nuts. He's crazy, and we're getting into some of the most crazy time of his life on Friday. join us on Ladies Bible Class on Friday morning as we continue our walk through the Old Testament. We have got tomorrow, we got somebody on American Sovereignty, but I am forgetting somebody else booked somebody for us, so I'm forgetting exactly who it is, but we got a guest tomorrow night on American Sovereignty Radio, and then Saturday Symposium. I'm going to tell you, Glenn and Dan, and as well as Gary from the Dakotas, is really rocking. They've got some guests lined up. They've taken that show off on their own. You won't hear me Saturday mornings anymore on Saturday Symposium unless I just call in. I kind of had to pass some stuff off, and it's one of those things. So join us on Saturday for that. It's going to be a great show. They've got some great people. I think it's Tammy Locke that is going to be on Saturday Symposium this coming up week. And, of course, next week, and I was going to, Rodney, are you still there? Let me look at the thing and make sure Rodney is
right here.
Up. You're there. Are you going to be in Iowa next Monday?
Next Monday. That's right. We're going to be doing our show partially live from Iowa, the Iowa caucuses that Ted Cruz is going to win. That's right. I said it.
Well, and you and I, Rodney, and I want to take a couple of seconds to talk about this. Working on an article on this, but we got some stuff deleted. But Camp Cruz, Rodney, I think, is going to be Ted Cruz's secret weapon. And you have a very, very close friend who is the king at Camp Cruz, and his name is Ken Brolin. And we've got another really good friend who is very, very helpful to Mr. Cruz, and that is Nancy Hayes. And you are going to be up there in Iowa at Camp Cruz, at the Cruz headquarters there in Iowa, having a great time, visiting with our good friends, Ken and Nancy, and many, there's a lot of them up there. Let me tell you, Rodney, there's a lot of Texans up there right now. Got a lot of friends up there. And you are going to be out there. We'll have to hornswoggle Ken Brolin onto the show, as well as Nancy Hayes and whoever else is there. And it's going to be a great show next week, Rodney. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. We got to go, man. Play us out. See you guys next week.
All righty. And with that, so tune in next week. And with that, we're just going to give us out some applause. And everybody, have a great day.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Yesterday, Cliff Sora shared a top 10 list of hot fusion restaurants, a vegan gluten-free mashup recipe, and a podcast featuring organic food trends. Oh, TMI, too much internet information. That's oversharing. Cliff, Geico has something worth sharing with your friends. Like how on Geico.com you could save hundreds on your car insurance, update your policy, and report a claim. Gluten-free info that's easy to swallow. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.